noticed in a timely manner. So that's actually probably the third one. But I struggle with this because we have a tree board, and this is sort of, to me, this is sort of the bottom line for what the tree board ought to be working on. But I know there's been some discussion, and I've started to draft up some paperwork that would move us more towards a park committee that would have the tree board function. But between me missing some meetings and us not being able to get the whole board together, it's been hard to have that discussion with those folks and figure out where they're at with that. Again, I think council guidance and direction will move that process forward.
What's the challenge of changing the tree board into a committee? Isn't there some statutory?
You need to have a tree board in order to be
a tree city. Tree City USA.
Okay, is that all? But there's a lot more. There's a lot more power vested in a board than in a committee.
Correct. And so again, I wouldn't recommend. You can have a park committee. Usually it's park and rec, but I understand there's some energy about recreation, so we'll just call it a park committee. Or you can have a park board like they have in Minneapolis. And that's very much like your library board. It's completely separate from the city. The city gives them money, but they have the power to go out and do all of the things that they feel that they need to do to operate parks throughout the city. So it's very autonomous of the city, which is why I felt that a park committee is more like your planning and zoning committee. They answer directly to the council. They're not off on their own.
So a park board would be dependent upon the city giving them money, or would they have also another source of funding?
There's two ways. One, and normally in a smaller town, is they would get whatever the city would give them, like the library. So the library also gets funding from the county, from SOFO. But some park boards, like Minneapolis, they have separate authority to levy. So they actually set their own levies. It's like an EDA, statutory EDA, not like the one that we have here, but a statutory one. They can go out and bond up to a certain percentage of the taxable market value of the city. The council can't do anything to stop them.
Oh, we don't want that.
No, I'd rather see the park committee.
Could you make this park and tree committee a subcommittee of planning commission, and have like one of the planning commission people be like the liaison to a park and tree committee?
Certainly.
That's an interesting idea.
Well, that's what
the
talked
people,
about.
yeah, the people on the tree board right now that are on there now will not be wishing to serve next year. They just don't have the time. They've said that they're not going to
And that's why we talked about combining with the planning.
Yeah, they're not. They don't feel. Well, they don't have a lot to do, really. They don't have a lot of things to do, and you know, with between emerald ash borer and planting some trees, that's about. You know, they just don't feel like they're being very productive, and maybe if it's combined with a park committee and in a bigger scope, and you get maybe they would find more interest in being involved in it if they thought they were actually accomplishing more or part of a bigger plan or something. You know?
And that was my thought. Sometimes when you talk about parks, instead of just trees, you're going to get more people interested in looking at parks and how they're being programmed, different things that we can do in the parks. That gets more people involved as opposed to just talking about trees.
So this park and tree committee would meet the definition that we would be able to maintain of a tree board, where we would be able to maintain our tree city.
Correct. In the enabling ordinance, you would say that the tree board resides
within this committee.
Right.
So, or what if we rolled it to planning commission?
Then I would have some maybe doubts of not fitting into a tree board city, or a tree city.
Would that destroy things?
No, you could do that. My concern is, you got what, 5 members on the planning commission?
7?
7. That's already a bigger committee to begin with. That was one of my thoughts. And tree board has been struggling with 3 people for a long time.
Yeah.
I think like Steve said, the big thing with the tree board is a lot of people, well, everybody loves to look at trees, but not very many people really understand trees. And there's, you know, there's some separate issues involved in dealing with trees. But, and if it was combined into parks, I think there would be interest. And that wouldn't preclude having a member from the planning commission.
No, certainly not.
I think it was.
As a
Sit on that.
liaison,
It'd be a good thing to have a liaison back and forth.
Yeah,
but if you look at programming a new park up on top of the bluff, coordinating our snowmobile trails, you know, the new bike trail and some different things that we can do with that, looking at future trails, Creekside Park, other parks around town, looking at what we have for equipment, safety aspect. I just think that putting that also on the back of just the planning commission, I think that'd be a little bit too much.
Probably would.
So if you think we could get people interested in serving? The people that are on the tree board now just have lost interest.
Some of them may be willing to serve, and
I think
and
as
if you
soon
can
as
find
tag
4 others or
parks to
3
it,
others, it could just be a 5-person committee. It doesn't need to be 7. But you know, if we're going to work with the DNR to help to widen the trail, to develop a canoe launch, primitive campground, talking some pretty big projects that I think it's going to take more than the planning commission. Might detract from them doing what it is that we were asking them to do just tonight.
yeah,
There is
that's big
overlap,
enough.
so there is a lot of overlap, but that's fine. Now remember when we did that resolution a while ago when we made that, what was it called again? Trails
Trails and tourism?
That was supposed to be a committee that was kind of like the clearinghouse for all these different entities that had things to do with parks and trails, and so it would be
Could we constitute
bikes
that?
and horses and snowmobilers and
I would love to.
everything.
Could we just do that and put the tree board function underneath that group?
But
It
that
wouldn't
was to get money
necessarily-
from further
It
other
wouldn't
sources
necessarily
too.
fit with that, I don't think, but it's something that could be looked at. It's
That was a committee that was sort of gonna be chamber and
as far
ADA,
as,
and everybody could kind of flow through that if for funding, and if they had funds, or to go out and find funds, or DNR and county and everybody all.
funding is the issue, of course, with trail development, but there's, that was primarily trail development and like you say, coordinating a visitor, more or less the visitor activities that could attract and keep people here for a weekend. But again, it's outside, motels, housing, or, you have to count on the service district or the commercial district of the town stepping up.